Hi, my name is Alan Farsfeld, and this is episode number 40 of the Urban Astronomer Podcast, December Solstice Edition. That means Clem Unger is joining us. Hello, Clem.
Hello, Alan. How are you doing?
I am well, thanks. What's the time there? It must be crazy.
It is crazy. It's just before 2 o'clock in the morning, and but astronomers put stuff like that away without any drama. But it's in the afternoon for you in South Africa, isn't it?
Yeah, it's late afternoon here. Yeah. Same old problems, always trying to find that gap when I don't have kids yelling at me or
That's right. But here it's quite possible that I get stirred up by a cat who suddenly decides to want to be fed or something like that. So yeah.
well, if that happens, then I'm sure our listeners will forgive it. Yeah. So, what should we start with? We're going to start with our sky guide.
Yes, or maybe how's observing been for you following the last Sky Guide? Did you go out and look for that comet Virtanen? Remember, we were wondering how you pronounce it.
Yes, I did capture an image of it. Probably I've forgotten now. It was about 2 weeks ago. It was quite dim, but I managed to catch it with my DSLR with a 50 millimeter lens, just on a static tripod because I didn't have much time to get the proper tracking mount out. And I captured it. It was dim, but it was there. I think it was still in Fornax, I believe, at the time. And I haven't seen it since because we are now in the rainy season, and it's just been storms every night. So I haven't seen much. How about yourself?
I've been out a couple of times, and it brightened up nicely, just like predicted. And I was out, was it a couple of days ago? So it's very close to the Pleiades, and it's a really good photo opportunity, and it shows up sort of a nice mint green on photographs. It's really cool. So it's done as we were told, so it's fabulous. And if it's dark sky, it's a naked eye object almost. I think it's great.
Because that naked eye thing, that's what catches people, isn't it? Because it's supposed to be magnitude, what, about 4.5 at the moment?
Yeah, no, it's even a bit better almost. But I mean, I can forget it with naked eye because when I go outside, that's the worst part of my sky, and there's a little bit of light pollution, so I have troubles picking it. But with a pair of binoculars, you have it straight away, especially with the Pleiades so nicely next to it. No issue finding it.
Yeah. No, I can normally make it down to about magnitude 4.5 under my skies, which is not enough to see it because I've heard a few people complaining on Twitter that they're struggling to find it and it should be visible, but they always forget that that's the integrated magnitude. That if it were a star, it would be visible, but that light is spread out over the coma. So it's a bit like when you're trying to find galaxies and nebulae, and it's supposed to be really easy just going by the numbers, but it isn't. But yeah, so binoculars and cameras, because it is still up, it is still visible.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, for us in the southern hemisphere, it will now move on really swiftly. So we won't have very much longer. But in the northern hemisphere, you'll see it quite a little bit longer. So yeah, still a good show, definitely. And I suppose true Christmas comet, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Tell me, did you catch any Geminids?
I saw I saw a few, but as always with meteor showers, it's a bit hit and miss. So, but it's a really good shower and a bit underrated. Everyone says Perseids, but I think Geminids are the ones to really go for.
Myself, I don't normally bother with meteor showers. This one, I would have made the time for this one, but again, we've been rained out every night, so I haven't caught it.
Yes, I mean, I've got little all sky camera and sitting outside, and with that you sometimes can catch the brighter ones quite nicely. So so even if you can't go outside and lie on your back on the lawn all the time, you still have something on recording if you want. So
You mentioned it. You mentioned that camera the other day. You said you built it.
Yeah. First, I had one of the smaller commercial ones from Orion, and that didn't prove to be very durable. So after 2 years, the acrylic dome changed its color, and it got the electronics got wet as well, so which is really bad for a commercial model. And so I had a spare camera, one of these ASI ones I used for planetary imaging, and it's got a fairly nice CMOS chip in it, and it comes actually with a wide-angle lens. And I thought, okay, let's see if we can stick it in a housing which I built out some old rain or stormwater plumbing bits with a little acrylic dome on it, which I found on the internet somewhere, and that works quite well. And low cost. If you want to have a really, really good all-sky camera, you're in for pretty decent money, but that little setup works quite well.
No, that's good. I must maybe we should draw some plans up or something. We can show people how to do it themselves.
Yeah, it's not difficult. One thing that you need to look around for is actually the detection software, because if you have that thing running all night long, you very quickly fill your hard drives up with with footage, and also during the day, for instance. Mine runs all the time, and it is sort of motion activated, and so whenever a bird lands on it, you get the feed of some wildlife. It's quite funny, and and I've got this software. It came actually with the other camera, and but you can download it on the internet, and it runs the camera through some recording loop, and whenever there is a motion detected, it actually records it on the hard drive, and so you don't have hours of boring stuff. You actually get all the bits which are interesting.
I've seen that same feature on security camera software as well, so
it
shouldn't be
similar.
too hard to find. Yeah. All right, should we cut over to the Sky Guide? Do you have anything interesting? Because I have very little.
Well, let's start with January. Maybe just cover quickly the moon. We've got new moon on the 6th, first quarter 14th, full on the 21st, and last quarter on the 28th. And planet-wise, Mars is the only naked eye planet in the evening sky. Everything else requires either staying up for a very long time or setting your alarm. And if you do that, you've got Venus very bright in the morning sky, and you have a bit of a quartet going on in January. You have the chance to see Venus, Mercury, Jupiter, and Saturn. So that's probably nice to see the old favourites again. But you have to get up early. Have you got anything else?
For January, yeah, two things. Well, one doesn't apply to either of us, I don't think. There's a lunar eclipse on the 21st.
Yep.
Let me see. I'm going to quickly do these time conversions in my head. It enters the umbra at 4:41 GMT and leaves it at 5:44 GMT, plus minus a few minutes, depending on, where you are within your time zone. So I suppose people in the far west will see it, the Americas and the South Americas, but you and I are out of luck for that one. And there's another chance to spot the lunar X on the 13th. This is at 12:35, so just after noon GMT. So again, I'm out, but you might have a chance for that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also for Australia, with the eclipse, you can see it, but not fantastic. So yeah, not great.
Let me see what else. I just want to say something about that lunar X because it's gotten a bit of press recently. I think it's a fairly new concept, but maybe people aren't familiar with it. You know what? I'm just going to read from the Astronomical Society South Africa Sky Guide here. It's basically when the terminator of the moon reaches a certain point that is at a longitude of 1.1 degrees on the moon, you get an interesting effect where some shadows of different craters combine in a way that forms a quite striking white X right on the terminator. Once you've seen it, it's very distinctive. Maybe I'll pop some photographs up on the show notes page. But it's only visible for a few hours, and it happens fairly often. I've got dates listed here for, I think, every single month. It's just not visible from the same place because sometimes the moon's going to be below the horizon in those few hours wherever you are. So at that time on the 13th of January, that's 12:35 p.m. If you can see the moon at that point, get your binoculars out and have a look. You should be able to see it quite easily.
Yes, and because the terminator on the moon actually runs fairly quickly across the surface, and so the visibility is very limited for that feature. So get the old binoculars out and have a look.
And that's me for January.
Yes, and I mean there is actually for our Siberian listeners, there is a partial solar eclipse, and on the 6th, so which is visible in parts of Eastern Asia, some parts of the northern Pacific Ocean, and best seen from northeastern Russia. Well, hello, our friends in Russia. Let us know if you saw it.
Okay, so how about February then? Because I've got... Yeah, go on.
Okay, well, let's cover the moon again. New moon's on the 5th, first quarter on the 13th, full moon on the 20th, and the last quarter on the 26th of the month.
Okay, I've got two close planetary pairings. On the 13th, coinciding with the first quarter, Mars and Uranus are going to be less than a degree apart, 65 degrees east of the Sun. And on the 19th, Mercury and Neptune will be very close, and that should be challenging to see because, of course, Mercury is never... In fact, Mercury is only going to be 15 degrees from the Sun.
Yeah.
So I would say, unless you've got some specialized equipment, give that one a skip. Because you're going to need binoculars and you're going to be pointing them very close to the sun.
Correct. So
maybe let that one go unless you have the right gear.
Yeah, not a good combination if you do that and you sneeze.
Yeah.
don't do that. And on the 19th, Venus passes Saturn at a distance of 2 moon diameters, or again, a bit more than a degree. So, close one.
Okay. Oh, and also another lunar X on the 12th of February at 2:13 a.m.
Hmm.
GMT.
Cool. Yeah, February. My God, we're racing through it, boy.
Yeah, there's just not much happening, is there?
Well, at least sort of on the planetary side of it,
Yeah.
few conjunctions and so on. But yeah, what about March? What have you got there?
March, another lunar X on the 13th at 3:26 p.m. GMT.
Hmm. And maybe for those who plan ahead, new moon on the 7th of March, first quarter 14th, full moon on the 21st, and the last quarter on the 28th.
All right.
Mm.
And
And
then in April, I have another two close planetary pairings. Venus and Neptune apparently will only be 17.1 arc minutes apart, which is less than half, or it's about half of a full moon's width.
that's very close.
Yeah.
But when that happens, we have already our next show on air.
Is that after the 10th of April? Yes, it is. You're right. You're right. I'm skipping a whole month ahead here. Well, there we go. Spoilers for next episode.
Yes.
Meanwhile, deep sky stuff, I think this is a good time of year for us in the south.
Yeah,
Orion is getting nice and high.
that's
The
right.
Southern Cross is up.
And yeah, and you can look at all those nice things when you're wearing your shorts. So suck it up, guys, up in the north. Um, so that's a good one. The only thing is Orion's upside down. So, but hey, I think that's a small price to pay. And
Hmm.
what I like at that time of the year is the Magellanic Clouds. Very nice one.
Yeah.
So easy to pick, and especially for those visitors to the southern hemisphere who come for a trip down south. Definitely have a look up, and you think, oh, there's a couple of small clouds in the sky. It's actually the Magellanic Clouds. It's amazing how bright they are.
My favorite object over this period to show visitors is Omega Centauri, that enormous globular cluster. It's a naked eye globular.
Mm.
Once you point them to it, it's the same as when you're pointing out M42 to people, the Orion Nebula. You say, see that one there, the middle of Star of the Belt? It's a bit fuzzy, right?
Yeah.
Right. You've just seen a nebula with your naked eye. Well, we can do that with a globular cluster as well,
Mm.
and it's quite fantastic.
Yeah, I mean that's huge, and as we talked about in our last special episode, it's huge, and it's almost better in binoculars than looking at through a telescope because it's just so big.
Yeah. Yeah, through the telescope, it completely fills the frame, and you don't actually see it. You just see it's like looking at a dense star field. Binoculars
Mm.
actually give you that spherical shape. You
Mm.
can see its edges.
Yeah,
In
no,
fact,
I think it's great. That one and 47 Tucana is there's nothing in the northern hemisphere that comes close.
definitely the prettiest globular by a long shot.
Mm, definitely. Good. All right.
Okay,
So,
what else have we got on the menu today? Uh, my goodness, this is an irritable
you,
moment.
Christmas star. Christmas star.
Oh, yes, yes. I wanted to have a little monologue here, although you're welcome to interrupt me with your opinions.
Mm,
Um, this is the time of year when the astronomy press starts bringing out theories about what the Star of Bethlehem might have been.
mm.
And every year it's the same old ideas, and it's usually it'll be new people offering them. And I had to go at this a couple of years ago, and I'd like to summarize my thoughts on the matter. It's
Oh,
traditional, it's nearly Christmas, so let's talk about this.
okay, fire away.
Right. Well, Let me see. There's a lot of so I was saying people like to talk about this. It's a common subject. Sometimes it'll just be folks like us, like you and me, science communicators and bloggers and what have you. And sometimes you see scientific papers being published offering a new theory as to what it might have been. And it tends to boil down to the same few suspects. It was a comet or a planetary conjunction, maybe a very bright meteor I've seen, or nova or a supernova. And those are typically, it'll be variations on those. And I think, though, if you want to understand this, you need to look at what the actual source material says. Now, I'll skip you a Bible reading here, but
Phew, got away with that one. Yep, good.
I read it so you don't have to. It appears once. It's in the book of Matthew, second chapter, verses 1 to 12. And the story basically goes that some magi, not kings, that's a popular culture Christmas carol story. It was magi who were wise men or probably astrologers or fortune tellers or what have you. And it's generally accepted that they came from Persia, modern day Iran. And they arrived one day in Jerusalem, having traveled from the east. That's all it says. They were trying to find the king of the Jews because they saw his star rising in the east and they had come to worship. The chief priests and teachers tell them of a prophecy by Micah that a great ruler will be born in Bethlehem. So they head out to Bethlehem, which was about 10 kilometers south, according to Google Maps today, which is a couple hours walk. And they find that the star is guiding them and eventually stops right above the very stable where Jesus was waiting. There's also lots of politics and Game of Thrones types, intrigues, plots to murder the baby because the existing king doesn't want the competition and so on and so on. But we'll leave that aside. This is an astronomy show. We're interested in the star itself. Okay. So, if we're going to explain what the star was, we need to find a natural phenomenon that meets those characteristics. It was visible for long enough that the Magi were able to travel all the way from their home country to Jerusalem and have time to make some inquiries around Jerusalem before being ushered into an audience with the king. And then, for about 2 hours, it moved visibly, directing them precisely to a specific location and finally stopping directly above a certain point. So,
did anyone work out how long it in reality takes sort of on camel back to get from A to B?
I think they can only be rough approximations. I would guess maybe a month or two.
Okay.
I've never traveled by camel, but that seems a reasonable estimate, given the ideas of what travel times were, looking at long merchants would take to move their what have yous. So the problem now, trying to find a natural phenomenon that meets those characteristics, right? And the problem is that most of the theories you get end up trying to have to interpret the facts of the source material. And that's a problem because it means that they're basically inventing additional facts to try and make their theory fit. You'll get people running planetarium simulations and saying, well, on 5 BC there was this alignment or what have you. And the problem straight away comes that nobody's clear when the birth of Christ was, what year it was. There's historical problems. You look at when Pontius Pilate ruled Judea, and you look at when King Herod was in charge, and okay, ruled is the wrong word, but never mind that. And you end up with quite a broad period, and no one's ever nailed it down. So straight away, you try to look for observations in stellarium or what have you, and you don't even know what year you're looking at. So there's a problem there. I've talked myself into a circle. Where was I now? Okay,
sorry.
So what I'm...
My fault. Yeah.
Well, no worries. But the thing is, you can't just go making assumptions and guesses about what else was left out of the story. So I'm going to skip that and just stick to what we know.
Yep.
So if we go through the standard options that way, let's go through them one by one. A planetary conjunction. All right, the idea that these have astrological significance. If you read a horoscope, and they'll always talk about how Mercury is coming into your constellation and just ruining everything, right? Because astrologers don't like Mercury for some reason.
But I mean,
a conjunction,
as we all know, why are there so few people who've never seen Mercury? Because it's very dim and you miss it. I don't believe that. So I think that's a no.
It's also, you would think they would hate Mars more than Mercury, wouldn't you? Because Mars, as we know, eats spacecraft.
That's right. However, not the last one. So
Yeah, it was great, but
yeah.
sorry, I'm off topic again. We can talk about that just now.
Okay.
And this
Sorry.
was my fault. I sidetracked myself there. So anyway, and a conjunction is just well, it's the point when two objects pass each other the most closely, right? So if two planets pass by each other, the moment when they're closest, we say that they are in conjunction. And this happens all the time. I mean, because there's a lot of objects out there and they're moving around. There's dozens every year. Astrologers like them because they're common, and that means whenever something happens, there was a conjunction close by, you can blame that. Easy.
Yep.
But there are no set of rules to explain what any particular conjunction means. It's really up to the individual astrologer's judgment. And it was worse in the old days before they had internets to talk to each other, right? And try to come to some sort of conclusion. So you'll find that conjunctions don't really get used much for predictions. And even if they were, you've got to remember that both Jewish and Christian traditions frown strongly upon astrology or any form of fortune telling. Right, if you're going to get something from the future, it's got to be through an official prophet spoken to by God. God is the source, not these other things.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems a little odd that the Bible would give credence to a heathen system, a non-approved source. So yeah, okay, I'm rejecting that one. I don't like the idea of that. Besides which, it says the Bible says a star, not some stars moving together. Comets. Comet theory, the biggest problem here, apart from the whole astrology thing, is comets are traditionally and universally bad omens, right? A comet indicates the death of a king or a war or a famine or disease or what have you. So anybody traveling a long way to see what the comet did, they're not looking for a birth.
Mm-hmm.
That's just, I mean, I don't know what they themselves thought, but it just doesn't seem to make sense, that a bad omen says, oh, a birth, let's get some gifts and go celebrate, Very bright meteors, well, I mean, meteors move very fast. That's simple. They just don't stay visible for very long. Not much use to guide you over a several-month journey, Although I suppose you could say maybe the second part's looking over, guiding them towards the stable directly. If you remember the Chelyabinsk incident a couple of years ago, there was that massive plume of cloud in the sky that hovered for quite some time, but it also came with a massive sonic boom that shattered windows and put people in hospital, and that's a pretty big, I think they would have included that. It's a pretty significant event.
That's right, and that means your camel would run away, so because it's scared, it's no good.
Yeah. Novae and supernovae, they're different things, but I'm lumping them together here because visually they're kind of the same. A new star appears, it shines brightly, hangs around for a while, slowly fades away and vanishes eventually. So that could work because that is actually up in the sky for quite a long time, especially if it's a bright enough one. But again, the problem there is it only covers the first part of the story. It doesn't explain the whole specific building thing. So the story says quite plainly that the star shone in the east, and then it guided the Magi to Jerusalem, and then it also says that the star then guided them on the walk to Bethlehem and stopped over a specific building so they could pinpoint exactly where he was. And there's nothing, there's nothing in the natural world that does that.
Aliens. What about aliens?
We're not that kind of show.
Yeah. Just, I'm sure there's a few people.
Sure, it could be aliens, yeah. Although there are some interesting sects and cults who say that Jesus was an alien. So maybe if we're going in that direction. But it only leaves two possibilities here. One being that if you are religious and if you're faithful, then this was not a natural thing that can be explained scientifically. It was a miraculous light that was an actual, genuine miracle because nothing else fits.
Yep.
Or, if you're not religiously minded, then it was just a story made up to fit a prophecy. One of the two. So trying to find an astronomical explanation for it is a bit of a fool's errand, I think. and let's not do that. And there I am. I've just grinched this episode of Christmas episode of the Urban Astronomer Podcast. Thank you.
Yeah, no, but I have to agree. So, so I hope we don't get hate mail now.
Well, yeah, if they do, that's fine. I'm happy to argue the point. But
if there's hate mail, send it to Alan, and if there's positive stuff, send it to me.
Yeah, well, sure. Actually, no, go ahead, do it. Mail me. It's a podcast@urban-astronomer.com. If it's a positive one, I'll forward it on to Clem, and we can read it out for you. And if it's a negative one, I will silently delete it. Thank you.
That's all right. Discussion is a good thing. And,
yeah.
But it's really a strange one, and I think it's very, very hard to explain scientifically, and I think it's made up to fit. Yeah.
In fact, I think the only reason it is that we have these articles appearing every year is because it's a bit of a crowd pleaser. You know, it's topical, it's evergreen. You can always just recycle the same old story, fire up Stellarium and say, oh, but look here, Jupiter was close to Mars. And, well, I think when they said in the east, they meant rising. And so it must have been that, yeah. Anyway, I think it's nonsense, all these theories. Yeah.
All right.
Although we were talking about Mars just now, you are the mission updates guy. You can tell us all about is there anything that's been happening interesting recently?
Well, we had the landing of the NASA InSight mission on Mars. We mentioned that in our last mission updates. Successful, and we got some rather unimpressive sounds from Mars, because some of the scientists, they used the seismometer which they had on board to actually pick up some sound waves when the wind is blowing over the lander. So it's not quite interesting. I mean, maybe not the news of the year, but nice retasking of a science package.
I tried to listen to that recording, and it was a bit disappointing because I was sitting at work with my nasty little, office issued headphones on, and I clicked play, and nothing happened. Then I read the fine print, and it said, "Make sure your subwoofer is turned up because it's a very low." Oh well, there you go.
Yeah, exactly. So, I think what is it? The Mars 2020 rover, I believe, has a proper microphone on board, so when they crunch through the landscape, you probably can hear it.
That'll be interesting.
So what else? We had OSIRIS-REx, my plucky little favorite, arriving at asteroid Bennu a couple of weeks ago, and for all those who haven't done so yet, go to the either Twitter or the website of the mission, asteroidmission.org, and have a look at the photographs, because that asteroid really looks amazing. It's like a sugar-coated, roasted, macadamia nut, I would say. So it looks crazy. And I'm interested to see how they going to plan their touch and go sampling, because that'll be tricky, because you don't want to snag the spacecraft on some rock. So it's really, really something to look forward to next year.
That asteroid actually reminds me of and this is my nerdy background coming out. It reminds you of an 8-sided die.
Okay, but one you dropped in the dirt.
Yeah, the one you don't like anymore.
Because it looks like coated with little bits and pieces, and especially when you see the short video sequence they have put together from a number of photographs where you can see it rotating, and there's in the southern hemisphere there's a couple of really large boulders, and it looks amazing. And always remember, it's pretty small. It's only 500 meters in diameter, so it's a dinky little thing, really, for asteroid standards. If you compare it to something like Vesta or Ceres, and so which then in turn makes all these proximity operations on the surface, like touch and go and orbiting around it, really tricky because the gravity is virtually non-existent.
Is that it? Is there anything else?
There's plenty, plenty more. So, I mean, one thing I definitely recommend, if you're not too drunk on New Year's Day morning, go Ultima Thule with New Horizons. My good friend Alan Stern, chief Plutophile par excellence, and his team, they're flying New Horizons past Ultima Thule and Kuiper Belt object, and they're threading the needle very finely. They go 3,500 kilometers distance past that object, which is nothing if you sort of put it in relation to the distance the spacecraft is from us. And it will be streamed live from their mission control center. So do yourself a favor, look at it. It's going to be good.
All right. No, that is going to be very special, I think. I suppose it's going to take another year to fetch all that set of data as well.
Yes, because the data downstream is worse than what you had with your dial-up internet. So even though the cameras are not huge in terms of pixels per photo, but still it takes an awful long time to download it, and again, they're flying past and they point and shoot at the Kuiper Belt object, which means for a while the spacecraft is very busy, and so it won't sort of immediately downlink photos. They'll take days or weeks before you see some really good stuff.
Well, I'm actually really interested to see what that's going to look like, because every time we find a new world, and it never meets expectations.
But I mean, Pluto probably doesn't really count as a new world because we knew it was there. But
well, I'm counting Pluto and Mercury as in the first time we've had a close look at the surface. Both times, absolutely surprising.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was crazy. I mean, Pluto, the detail of some of the stuff and what they actually found is I mean, I always love it. There's this one, I think it's Twitter feed, who every day you get your daily feed of a Pluto photo, some detail, and it's just the diversity of terrain, what you can see is just it warrants another mission, really.
No, definitely, yeah.
Then did you actually check out this Chinese Chinese mission to the moon, the lander?
I haven't followed that. I'm aware that it's happening. I don't know what the status is.
Yeah,
it's on landing on the far side, correct?
Yeah, I mean they launched the mission successfully. I mean, it comes really in two parts, and in June the communications part was launched, communications satellite which orbits around the Earth-Moon Lagrange point L2, which is in itself a novelty because I don't think anyone has done that before. And the reason for that is to accommodate for seamless communication with the lander, which will land on the far side of the moon, which we obviously can't see from Earth, i.e. communications with a thing like that, it's not possible. So, the second part, which consists of the lander and a rover called Chang'e 4, was successful. And so they're in transit at the moment, and I would think they go in a lunar orbit, and then at some still not disclosed date, I would say in January, they attempt the landing. And if that goes to plan, it's the first soft landing on the far side of the moon, and with a lander and a rover and a pretty good science suite on board, so definitely something to look at. Doesn't get a lot of attention in the media because the Chinese Space Agency, it's a little bit like the Russians in the past. They're very secretive, so they launch it first and then they say they did it just in case something goes wrong. And then also, of course, with sort of the political ramifications, China with some people is not particularly popular, so some media outlets just choose not to report it. But I think if you take politics aside and you just look at the science side of things, it's definitely a really noteworthy mission, and if it goes to plan, the science out of it will be pretty good.
That's also something to look forward to then. When are the results going to come? Well, I suppose, like you said, it's secretive, but is there any idea when we can expect to see something?
I would say sometime in January. I mean, once they're down and it's not crash landed. If you remember the last lander and rover that was landed on the moon, I think it was a couple of years ago or so. The photos came very quickly. I mean, once the success is there, they're definitely broadcasted, I'm sure. And there's a couple of instruments on board. There's a German one on the lander, and I think a Swedish one on the rover. So there's international cooperation. So, and those scientists, they definitely want to see what happens. So there will be some information coming out for sure.
Right. Well, that's good then. That's good.
What else have we got? I suppose 2018 was definitely a very busy year for launches, predominantly with unmanned missions. But something to look forward to is in 2019 the crewed launches from the States, from US soil, because you've got SpaceX coming up with their Crew Dragon launch in January, unmanned first, but nevertheless, it's the real deal. Currently planned, let me have a look. Ooh, where are we here? January 17th, that's American time. As it stands, they want to launch that one, and if successful, the crewed launch is, I believe, in July or August in the coming year. So it's pretty good, and Boeing is not far behind. So they do their uncrewed one, I think, in March, if I'm not mistaken. So there's definitely something exciting, and like with all things space and people, also with a bit of risk to it. So fingers crossed that everything goes well. Because as we've seen with the last Soyuz launch, not the last, but the Soyuz MS-10 with the aborted launch, things can go pear-shaped.
Yeah. Anything else?
No, that's. I mean, there is a plethora of launches, and everyone who's interested in that, there is a quite a number of websites which lists launches and adjusts them because launches are often a bit in flux, and if something doesn't look right, they scrap them. So it's when it's printed on paper, it's no longer good usually. So check it on the internet and watch it because pretty much every launch gets streamed live these days, and so have a look at it. It's a good one. I enjoy it every time. Never get bored of it.
Yeah. Well, then, before we close off, I just want to plug something. A friend of mine. You'll remember back episode 26, we interviewed Neville Young.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, and as you'll remember, Neville wrote a book called Astronomy Within Reach a couple of years back, and it sold quite well. But the publisher decided they needed to clear old stock to make space for new titles, and rather than let the unsold copies get pulped, he went and bought the entire supply. And he's been selling them privately ever since.
Okay, so Neville lives in the garage because his house is full of books.
Oh no, it's only half of his spare room. I've seen the stack. It is a pile about the size of a bed. It reaches to the ceiling, but
whoa, okay.
However, in fact, I actually bought a few copies from him when I did the interview, which I was using as giveaways for listeners. Anyway, Neville's got about 200 copies left, so he has announced a Christmas special. You can have the book. You can have the book in the English or Afrikaans edition for 100 Rand, which is about $7.
That's a bargain. That's really good price.
Very cheap. I mean, these books were going for 300 Rand when they were on the shelves. He's been selling them for 150. I'm not sure he's even trying to make that much of a profit on them. I think he just wants, his book to be read as widely as possible. But yeah, until the end of the year, until the 31st, he's selling them for 100 Rand each. I'm going to put a link to the page where you can order them, or you can just Google for his professional brand, as it were, is Star Waders. It's on that website. So if you'd like a copy of it, drop him a mail or use his portal and grab yourself a copy. It's a good book, so it's well worth having. That's all I had to say about that. So then I guess it is time to wrap up. Thanks everyone for listening. Thank you, Clem, for depriving yourself of sleep like this, sitting up so late for us.
Yeah, it's 20 to 3. So yeah, that's okay. You know what? I will step outside in a minute and have a look if it's actually clear. Before was sort of a bit meh, but now maybe I get treated to a Christmas star. Who knows?
Hey, that would be nice, yeah. So if you really want to show your appreciation to Clem for the extra effort he's put in for us, go ahead and leave us a review somewhere. Just tell everyone how amazing the show is. With this kind of dedication, I think we deserve a couple of 5 stars there. Because this is what you're supposed to do, right? You're supposed to pimp yourself and ask for great reviews.
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, any review at all, suggestions, things you would like to hear, want us to talk about, and if you like it, you can also jump on to the Patreon page of the show and show your support in cold hard coin.
I do like me some cold hard coin. So far I haven't actually spent a cent of it. It's still just accumulating, and the idea is that we're going to get some better equipment and up our sound game a bit. Who knows? Maybe we can do some interesting things. Maybe start paying for people to do transcriptions. Wouldn't that be nice? But yeah, of course that needs the support, because that is a bit out of my personal budget, and poor old Clem is doing this for free, so maybe one day we can buy him a Christmas present or something. But
I'm so cheap. Yep.
Yeah, otherwise just a simple subscription, then at least we get to see the numbers, how many people are actually listening to this. And of course, if you want to speak to us directly, if you don't want to do the public statement, that's fine as well. You can just drop us a mail at podcast@urban-astronomer.com, or you can find us on Twitter or Facebook and leave us messages there. There's links to all of these things on the website at urban-astronomer.com. That's all I got to say.
Pretty much, yeah. So otherwise, have a safe Christmas with or without Star, and don't drink too much. And as I said in last mission update, look up at the sky and not at your bloody iPhone.
There we go. Thank you very much for that. And yeah, clear skies, everybody. Bye-bye.
Cheers.